Alright, guys, so a little bit of a different topic today, no programming, but I got a few emails and also questions here in the comments which computer or laptops I recommend for Siemens PLC programming. And the answer is simple, it depends. Yeah. Um, Really depends on multiple factors. And first of all, of course, it's what are you using it for? Are you a full stack developer or are you a commissioning engineer or are you both? You um, that being said, it's never there's no simple answer, right? There's a lot of preferences that people have. There's a lot of preferences that companies have. There is prices a factor, for example. Of course, there's also the plain and simple specs that Siemens, for example, requires you to have in order to for Dia Portal, for example, to run smoothly on your computer, right? So, but first things first. So the specs I think that Siemens recommends is at least 16 gigabyte of RAM and a processor that I think is at least an i5. I believe so, Intel i5. Um, all the newer, AMDs or whatever, they Siemens runs on those too, but uh, we have restrictions when it comes to the operating system. I do think that the only operating system or systems that Siemens TIA Portal is running on is Windows, and then the multiple versions of that. Right now, finally, 2 years ago, Siemens upgraded their TIA Portal software to Windows 10, and I have to say, since then, TIA Portal and Windows 10 actually they work really well together. And me as a former Mac user and now again Mac user, have to say that the Windows operating system runs really well, and especially in combination with the Siemens TIA Portal, it's a really nice cooperation there. The thing is that you don't have to look on numbers of cores so much for specifically for the Siemens TIA Portal because as a lot of other industrial softwares, Siemens TIA Portal is only using one core of your computer to do the heavy lifting of, like, for example, compiling or graphic design and things like that. So having an 8 core computer, for example, compared to a 4 core computer or a 6 core computer doesn't really matter if you're only looking for performance of Siemens TIA Portal, because they're only using that one core. But I said there's also a difference of what you're doing with it, right? So now that we have, like, we we secured the specs here, right? So you need an okay fast computer, 16 gigs of RAM. We're using Windows 10 operating system, 64-bit. I would recommend having an SSD because um, booting up and everything, the Siemens TIA Portal runs way faster and smoother on an SSD than a hard disk drive. But I think that's the case for all big IDEs, like Siemens TIA Portal. Um, but again, like, it's a lot of this is preference, but the specs are not. All right, so now let's go back to what are you actually doing with that, right? So if you use a if you are a full stack developer, so what I always do, for example, when I do developing work, I don't work I only work with the laptop motherboard, but I don't use the laptop itself. I don't use the keyboard. I don't know. I don't use the monitor or anything that is built in. I use a dock, and then I use two 24-inch monitors, and I use an external keyboard, external mouse, and stuff like that. So for me, the only thing that really matters here is the performance of the computers, not so much what type of computer it is. Um, Also not like really what type of, like, like USB outputs. We have HDMI and blah 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 blah. I don't care because I put a dock in on USB-C Thunderbolt, and then I'm done. I have however many outlets as I want. So that isn't really important to me, for me personally. All right, so developing, I think the laptop itself doesn't really matter. You could as well just go for one of those IPCs, HP or Livono or whatever they are. The only thing you can't use is Mac, unless you want to run a VM, what I'm not a big friend of. I know a lot of my colleagues are using VMs a lot for projects, so they don't have to have um, so many different setups. They don't like to run their multiple platforms on the same host. I don't mind that because we outsource everything else in the cloud or in external hard drives, but we run the main software on the core, on the host, and that's preference, right? So, but you don't really need a fancy laptop for when you want to be, or when you mainly do developing work. But that changes totally, yeah, when you go on site and mainly do commissioning. All right, so then there's a few factors that also, every commissioning laptop isn't, or the requirements for every commissioning laptop isn't the same either, because it really depends what you're doing, even in the Siemens world, right? For example, let's say you are using a system where you deal with a Siemens S7 300 classic world, and you're using Profibus, all right? Then it makes sense for you to either have a bunch of other plugs or have a laptop that already has built-in cards with like serial outputs and with like a bunch of Ethernet cards, and basically going to the best solution for that probably is the Siemens Field PG, the programming device that Siemens sponsors. It runs Windows 10. I think the latest one is M6 or M7 or something like that. It is equipped with a bunch of like outlets for, like I said, like serial, two Ethernet ports. I think they even have like a 25 pin and all kinds of stuff, that you would use especially when you want to connect to all kinds of different like classic world devices. Yeah, totally changes when you are working on a modern day S7 1500. Everything is Profinet, where you can just plug in with Ethernet, or even like put a Wi-Fi access point on the PLC, on a Scalens or something. Create a Wi-Fi network. You don't need a physical connection whatsoever. Everything can run through TCP/IP version 4, or even version 6, and that it's done. You don't need any cards. You don't need Ethernet. You don't need anything. All right. You don't need serial, whatever. And for the devices that you still need some serial, there's adapters from USB to serial. That's another thing. But this is my channel, so I give you my opinion. Me personally, I do use Dell computers for my business. I do use personally. I use the XPS 15. That is actually a model from 2017, I think. And don't let me lie to you, I think it's the 95 model. What does it say? I think it's 9560, if I XPS 9560, and it's very lightweight. It has an SSD 500 gig, one of those new fancy small SSD cards in there. Super lightweight. Doesn't have much to plug in, to be honest. It has a USB-C. I don't know if you can see this USB-C. USB port, like I said, a headphone jack, and then on the other side, I think there's an SD card slot and another USB port. All right, so altogether, I really like it. I had some issues with it where, the 2017 model had some issues with the motherboard that they exchanged already twice for this year. I had a speaker, like an internal speaker replaced. But I had signed up for the 24-hour on-site repair, so I didn't even have to do anything. They came to me, exchanged everything, was back up and running a day later. But it was very frustrating twice, where I was at one of my customers, and one time I gave PLC training, where it died on me, and I had to use their Siemens Field PG. And one time it was actually the same customer in the middle of some commissioning work where it died on me and I had to use their computer. It can be embarrassing. In that case, that customer, they didn't take it they didn't take it bad. They were like, what happens. The second time they had to laugh a little bit about the computer, but to be honest, I got the job done and everything was fine. And I think back then, it has an i7 in there. I don't want to lie to you. I'll look it up. i7, 7th generation, and I think 16 gig of RAM. And give me 1 second and I will tell you exactly the specs of it. And like I said, performance-wise, I'm very satisfied with it. I had a little bit of an issue there with the hardware twice, but other than that, perfect for me personally, right? Doing mostly developing work and office work because it's my business. Anyway, so XPS 15 9560, like I said, Intel Core i7 7700 HQ CPU 2.8 gigahertz. 16 gig of RAM, and it runs a Windows 10 Pro with 64-bit. All right, so that is about the specs that I have here. Like I said, super lightweight. If you want to have a look here, so I like the design. Actually, it looks like carbon fiber here. It has a very smooth touch to it. Like I said, it's a little bit older already, 4 years old, and but it still has I think until this November, one day on-site repair. So I'm not gonna get rid of it, and even after that, I think I will hold on to it because it's a really nice machine. So that being said, pricing back then, I think now the setup that I have here would cost you about $1,800 plus tax, depending on where you are. You can only order those online at Dell. I paid $2,300 back then because I used a Windows version back then that was Windows Business, and I had to buy the actual thing. Siemens software right now I think ranges, if you have to buy it from them the first time without equipment. So if you don't buy a CPU, I think the version 16 is out as of right now and costs you, depending on the setup, I think between $4,000 and I would say about $8,000 for the license. And that's on there. And if you're just upgrading from the latest version, I think it's about $1,300 depending on the country you live in. But if you buy a CPU, what you can do, you can buy a starter pack where they give you a license for free for I think 1 year of support or something. So that's actually pretty cool because you know, who doesn't need a PLC to do some learning and everything, So yeah, that's it for that. So for commissioning though, so all of my employees actually get a computer from me. It's also Dell, it's the Dell Precision 7510. I just hired someone Friday. I can give you like a little. It has this little number keyboard on it. It's also 15-inch Dell Precision 7510, 15.6 inch. Pretty much the same setup there. i7 8620 HQ, 2.7 gigahertz, 16 gig of RAM. Windows 10 Pro, and I think also has SSD. It is quite heavy, I have to say that. It's also very thick, if you see that. But the good thing about this here is that they do have more ports. All right, so they have a few ports more in on the side. So there's USB, HDMI, Thunderbolt, and display ports and everything right here. They also have this fancy little slot here where you can actually, if you work for a bigger company, they mostly have like RFID cards that they put in there. And on the other side, it has more USB, an SD, headphone jack, and I think this little thing where you can actually put a lock on so they don't steal it. But it's also not too bad. And then the real good thing about this computer is actually on the back. They still have a physical Ethernet. All right, so that is actually pretty good because, you know, if you want to actually connect on site to the PLC or the PLC network, this comes in very handy. All right, so I have to say this. So all of my employees, all of my commissioning engineers, robot as well as PLC, get this computer. Why is that? Because it was once a really powerful computer, and still is, yeah. But the price is just unbeatable. All right. So I can show you. Like I said, I just hired someone here on Friday that will be a new PLC commissioning engineer and developer, and I bought this thing on Amazon for $669.99. All right, that for me, that's unbeatable. It's refurbished, and I have to say, you know, this one is actually the worst I've ever gotten. So you can see that they, you know, have a bunch of scratches here and there, you know, but like we'll actually putting it to the test. It has the docking station connector there, so we will see how this works out. The last few ones that I bought, they're doing their job. They look good. You know, there's no scratches, anything. If you look inside here, you know, they're remaking it with this like folia and everything. It's like looking like new, to be honest. So I'm not too worried about it. And then it always comes with the where is it? Where's the camera? Here, there. Maybe I can make that bigger. Amazon Renewed. All right, so that you know, if it doesn't work, I send it back. That's not a problem. They take it back, and we will have fun, you know, and we just spend less money and have a good computer. You know, if it lasts 2 years, 3 years, that's actually enough to me. For me, on site, I have to say all the time, on site, you know, accidents happen. You know, you're walking through the line and everything. You know, there's moving machinery. You put the computer up down on a conveyor. You have it on like I don't know, those like folding tables from Walmart or something. You know, people move around, machinery moves around. You know, stuff breaks. So I rather have a $700 or less than $700 computer break than a $2,000 one, because insurances actually don't, most of them don't cover on site, like industrial automation on site accidents. If you do know a company that does that, you know, let me know. If it's not too expensive, then I would like to sign up with them. One more time, so I'm not affiliated with Dell or Amazon or anyone any of the companies that I mentioned in this video. This is just my personal preference and what we do at Pitco. at the end it's up to your boss or to yourself, or what do you want to use. Preferences again. It makes sense for certain jobs to have certain type of machines. I have worked with HP also. Had okay experience with that. I worked with the Livono ThinkPad just earlier last year. I wasn't a big fan of their keyboard, but also it was a nice machine. They're all kind of the same. They all run Windows. They all have the same chips in there. So that being said, thank you for watching my video up until this point, and thanks for following me. If you don't follow me yet, please subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss out when we upload new PLC learning videos. What actually in the next few months will happen a lot. We want to give back more to the PLC community worldwide, and I think we are building a pretty big one here right now already, and I hope this is gonna go in that direction even further. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video.